You know those moments where someone's been hiding something for years and then, bam! The whole truth bursts out and suddenly, everything you thought you knew gets flipped on its head? Well, brace yourself, because what Sue Aikens just revealed after a decade of silence is going to make you see her life in the Arctic in a whole new light. For years people whispered. There were rumors, there were stories, but no one really knew what was going on behind those frosty scenes. You'd see Sue Aikens, the living legend of the far north, powering through the ice, taking on grizzlies, fixing snowmobiles, cracking jokes about the cold, and somehow always coming out the other side. But what you didn't see, the struggle that almost made her walk away from the wild forever. Let's rewind to the moment that changed everything. It's April 2025. After years of dodging the topic, after countless, "I'm fine" really shrugs, Sue finally lays it all out. She's not superhuman, she's just been through hell and back, and for the first time she's ready to talk about what it really did to her. Here's the deal. In 2015, Sue Aikens survived an accident that would have knocked most people out of the game for good. Picture this. It's deep winter, winds screaming, temperatures that'll freeze your breath. She's asked to make an emergency run on a snowmobile over terrain that's about as stable as a house of cards in a hurricane. What happens next? The machine goes down and she's left broken. Collarbone snapped, hip out of place, muscles torn to shreds. And that's just the physical stuff. Inside, she's fighting a battle you can't see. But here's what's wild. She doesn't leave. Most of us would have called a chopper, waved the white flag, and headed for a warm bed in Anchorage. Not Sue. She gets it out at her remote outpost, unable to move around, in pain, refusing to abandon her post because, in her mind, nobody else can run that place the way she does. But time takes its toll. That accident? It left behind something even more vicious than broken bones, years of post-traumatic stress, a body that's never quite the same, and a creeping osteoarthritis that makes every winter a bigger fight than the last. By 2020, the docs in Anchorage are giving her a hard truth. If she doesn't go under the knife, she's staring down the barrel of a future where she might not be able to walk at all. So she does what she always does. Makes a plan, but this time it's not just about survival. She has surgery in secret, out of state, while the world thinks she's just busy filming. 6 months off camera, everything coordinated so her absence doesn't raise any eyebrows. Someone else checks the generators, monitors the tech, because Sue Aikens is still running the show even from her hospital bed. What you might not realize is just how close she came to saying, enough. In a conversation from 2023, she admits something she's never told the cameras. "I don't want people to see me weak. I'm not indestructible, but I'm not about to start announcing every time I'm down." Can you imagine the pressure? Locked inside her own body, not sure if she'd ever get back to the ice. There were days where the isolation and anxiety had her wondering if it was all worth it. She started on meds. Nothing heavy, just enough to help her sleep, to keep the panic at bay. But she was questioning everything. Was this the end of the road? Could she keep doing it? The answer for a while was, I don't know. What brought her back? A little hope, some healing, and that stubborn, relentless commitment to the wild. By June 2022, she got the green light from her doctors and she rolled right back into the Arctic, determined to keep the place running, but she was also thinking about a future where she might have to say goodbye. She made plans. Detailed, practical, almost cold in their logic. Maybe build a cabin 110 miles south, closer to civilization. Maybe start training someone else to take over, slowly, over the next 5 years. She knew she couldn't do it alone forever. And the psychological scars? Those cut even deeper than the physical ones. In her own words, she hit the breaking point of solitude. There were days she thought about just pulling the plug, shutting down the whole operation, and letting nature reclaim the place. But as she said in a rare private interview, maybe I need Kavik more than Kavik needs me. Chills, right? That's the kind of line you never forget. As she healed, Sue Aikens started rebuilding, not just her body but her entire lifestyle. She upgraded everything. Automating chores, installing sensors, creating a living space that took the strain off her joints and made her daily life a little less brutal. She even set up systems for regular checkups, working with local health groups, and monitoring everything from her blood oxygen to her muscle function. It wasn't about being tough for the cameras anymore. It was about surviving smart. Her days became a careful dance between activity and rest, keeping in sync with the Arctic's wild rhythms, following her physical therapist routines, adding breathing exercises, finding ways to relax, and even tracking her moods. She was determined to find balance, to master the mental game as much as the physical one. That didn't mean the loneliness ever really faded. But here's something a lot of people don't know. Sue Aikens was basically raised by the wild. She grew up just outside Chicago, but after her parents split, her mom dragged her north to a town smaller than most city blocks. Then just months later her mom left her there, alone, barely a teenager in the middle of nowhere. No guardians, no real support. She learned how to survive with nothing but grit, learning from the land and building walls around her heart. By the time she was old enough, she'd made her life about one thing: control. She operated solo, trusted no one, and never let herself expect company. That became her way of life, even as she bounced around Alaska, finally putting down roots at her legendary station in 2002. For almost 20 years she was the only person officially holding down that land. Can you picture that level of independence? Most people would have cracked. Experts who've studied her story say her extreme independence is both her superpower and her curse. It lets her function in a world that'd break the rest of us, but it also makes it nearly impossible for her to slide back into normal society. And she's cool with that. In fact, in her own words, "I am the end product of a chain of social ruptures, and I choose to operate as such." That's why her story hits so hard. It's not just a reality show. It's decades of proving to herself that she could survive, alone, against all odds. Her record speaks for itself. Over 240 appearances, 23 seasons, always in the thick of it, always fixing, fighting, and surviving. By 2017 she was running the show in more ways than one, making calls about when to film, what to film, and how to keep everyone safe out there. She even started training others to handle the Arctic the way she does. Let's talk about the money for a second, because people always wonder, does living like that pay off? For Sue Aikens, most of what she earned, millions over the years, went straight back into Kavik. Food storage, weather systems, backup power, you name it, she reinvested in survival. The fame? Sure, it helped pay the bills, but she never chased the spotlight. Even when she dabbled in consulting for movies or took an executive producer credit, it was always about sharing what she knew, not building a brand. Here's another wild fact: everything you saw on screen? Totally real. No scripts. No acting. Just Sue in the moment, living her life, dealing with whatever the tundra threw at her. And when the health stuff hit, she adjusted. She cut down on live episodes, had more things pre-recorded, and made sure she could keep her health in check without losing what made her story real. But even legends have to plan for the future. In 2019 she bought a backup cabin way down south in the warmer part of Alaska. A tiny place not for business, just for retreat. It became a testing ground, a spot to track how her body handled different climates, a fallback in case her health or the weather ever made life at Kavik impossible. By 2025 she'd started officially preparing for the next chapter. Training someone to run the station, setting up plans for monitoring and maintenance, even considering turning the place into a research site when she's ready to step back. She's not quitting, she's just making sure the legacy of surviving in one of the planet's wildest places keeps going, even if she's not there every single day. Now here's the real kicker. After 45 years of living and thriving in the most extreme isolation imaginable, Sue Aikens isn't out to prove anything to anyone. In her words, Kavik isn't about being an icon. It's about showing that a person can operate complex systems, in total isolation, just by their own power. That, right there, is the heart of her story. It's about resilience, adaptation, and the quiet, stubborn strength it takes to keep going even when nobody's watching. If this story moved you, if it made you rethink what you thought you knew about grit, independence, or just plain human toughness, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that like button, share this with someone who needs a little inspiration, and hey, stick around for more stories that dig beneath the surface. Got a thought? Drop a comment below. We'd love to hear what you think. Thanks for sticking with us to the end. And remember, sometimes the wildest stories are the ones we keep to ourselves, until the moment we're finally ready to let them out.